Hello, everybody. It's great to be here on the Results Podcast and recording live on YouTube. Welcome and thank you for being here. It's great on the podcast right now. We're getting over 7,000 views. So a big thank you to everybody who's interested in listening. Now, today, I'm really lucky and privileged to have a young lady with me who's a fellow marketer. She, like I, have been involved in the world of marketing for many, many years and seen many, many changes in that time, no doubt. We've both been doing this for quite some time and both started clearly very, very young. Now, just before I start, you may notice, those of you who are watching on video, I've got a big mark on the end of my nose. And I'm just telling you this because you're probably thinking, what's happened to Steve? And the truth is, I've just moved house and I dropped something on my nose. So that's the story behind that. If you're listening on the podcast, you're probably thinking, what's he on about? But anyway, never mind. So welcome, Lauren, to the conversation. Thank you ever so much for being here. We've been promising that we'll arrange this for ages, and it's good to actually finally be on, to have you on my podcast and to be interviewing you today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the terminology of young lady. I don't think I've been called that for a very long time. If only it were true.
Well, what can I say? You clearly started very young, is all I can say.
Ah, bless
I've
you.
been
You're
going
too kind.
27
And also, bless
years,
those
as you
Zoom
know.
filters.
And I was like 10 when I started, I think, something like that. Anyway. Okay, so just to kick off, do you want to maybe give a sort of brief overview of you, your skills, your experience, and what you do now, please?
Yep. So I am a little bit different to you, obviously. We're both marketing, but very different. So you're more on the tactical side, where I'm more strategy and insights. So I spend a lot of time working with organizations, and this can be a mix. I find more and more it's not just about marketing. It can be the accounts marketing team, client services, and also sales and partnership teams. And what I do, sort of the primary thread through everything I do, is about insights and strategy. So, you find people will start to want to make a move or want to try and do something. And the best thing about insights is that it's based on data and facts and analysis. So this can be looking at customer data, analyzing that. It looks at external insights, so all of the factors that are happening externally. And it gives you a really clear view of a sort of state of events and also where the opportunities are. So it means that they can make decisions easier because it's based on facts, and that then means, okay, great, this is the right decision to make, and it takes the risk out of making those decisions. And then alongside that, it will be factors like helping them implement a change. So maybe they're trying to do some new form of marketing. So account-based marketing is becoming a very big thing in B2B. And a lot of my clients don't know how to do that. So I'm helping setting that up and various other things to do with maybe customer experience. I help them review all of that. So there's a lot of internal reviews that I do that help them perform that and creating value propositions and strategies. So basically they can, create revenue at the end of the day. That's the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I fully endorse and agree. It's so important to not just think, right, okay, I'm going to do email marketing or I'm going to do social media, but the strategy behind that and why you're doing it and who you're doing it to is probably the most important thing, actually. People spend a lot of time in my world talking about using, this email marketing system or that one, and really the truth is it doesn't really matter. They're all pretty good, but what really matters is the target market, really, and is that the best? Are you marketing to the people that you should be marketing to? I think it's really important. Now, and I know we've spoken over many months, and I know you've been doing some research. And just wondered whether you could tell people a little bit about the research that you've done, who you were talking to, and what results you found, please.
Yeah, this actually came about. So I had been working over the years with many marketing projects, and what I discovered is that the essence of what I do is it's helping customers as their customer or as their organization grows. So this will be, you have that scaling up piece, then you sort of optimize, and then you scale up and you optimize. And as that company grows, so it's along these different life stages, their needs change. So either they might need help of saying, where do we go to in order to scale up? And then how do we optimize everything behind that to make it as efficient and effective as possible? And as I've been going along those different life stages, I've found that from a marketing point of view, actually there's 4 points that seem to happen over and over again. Marketing is highly reliant on IT, operations, and sales. And whenever I'm doing any kind of project, those 4 are so critical. They're so interlinked that what I was really interested in is to know, actually, let's see what else the challenges are, not only for marketers, but let's look at all the other elements and say what's going on for operations, what's going on for sales, and IT, and then see if there's some common connection. So this one today that I'm talking about is the marketing element,
Yeah.
but there will be some pieces that I'm releasing over the months. So over this month in November to say, where are the commonalities and how are they interlinked? Because actually it's quite important. Those 4, if they work together, they'll be so much more effective.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. It's so important, isn't it, to to work together really in every aspect really of a business, not just in marketing. So yeah. So what were the findings? I'm interested in knowing what's we've done some research. What have you found out?
Yeah, so the one of the things that I was keen on doing is making sure that we had quite a broad sample set. So I wanted to make sure that not only, we're taking from these 4 different departments, but we're looking across multiple industries. So the industries that I researched were a real myriad of technology, energy, financial services, retail, biotechnology, and then the company sizes, I actually went quite small, which is normally smaller than I normally go for, but I was just interested to know, from 5 people, 5 employees, right up to 1,000, how those challenges change.
Yeah,
So across those, there were some clear insights that came. It took a long time to work through all this because I had 30 different interviews, which takes a long time to work through.
sure.
But the sort of key thing that does seem to be the key challenges for them is insights is a big problem. They don't have the insights to really create effective spend. So what they're wanting to do is, go out and do something, but actually, like you just said, just doing a marketing campaign, how do we do it? Where do we spend? And how do we be more effective at that spend? So if they had the insights, they'd be able to do that.
Mm,
The next thing is that, as I mentioned about scaling up. So as these companies are growing, they scale up very quickly in the growth piece, but then they're struggling with skills and the process behind that. So they don't really have the team and the capability behind it to really pad that out and continue that. So this, if you imagine, this is that scaling up, then you've got optimizing. So they need to be able to optimize the systems and the skills behind it to continue that trajectory. Silos was, this is a thing that obviously happens in every organization. Silos always is a problem because they start to form as a company grows. Then you start to have these functional leaders in, sales, marketing, IT, operations, and they are focused on their own organization or on their own function. So they struggle to be able to work together. And one of the things that does seem to be a common problem is, again, it goes back to insights. So you'll see there's a lot of overlap, insights again, that they don't actually set joint KPIs. So, marketing has their own KPIs, sales have their own KPIs, but they're not connected. And actually, if they were connected and they had joint activities and objectives, they'd work so much more effectively as an organization because everybody's working towards the same thing. So that one's a critical one. And I've got 3 more to go. And then the next one is return on investment. And, of course, we all know this one. You and I were talking about this before we started recording is, marketing is an investment. And they are constantly, these marketing leaders I spoke to are under pressure to be able to very quickly demonstrate that they're getting return on investment. And the trick that it's really critical to do that is how they measure those, but also how they set KPIs, because you need to have a balance of things that are relevant now, so immediate returns, but also long-term returns. And if they do that, that means that they're also creating expectations, because they've got boards or exec teams that they need to answer to. But if they set those ahead and agree the right KPIs, that means they can do a balance of the right kind of returns. Two more to go. Value propositions and customer experience is a big thing that everybody's talking about in bigger organizations. And, how do they create those? And a lot of them are, creating a proposition based on just a general thought and consideration of what they think customers might be interested in. Some are doing research, so we're not saying, I'm not forming a generalism, but it's more the smaller companies are struggling to be able to create that value proposition and customer experience because they don't, again, have the insights behind it. So you need to be able to do that research to say, okay, this is where the value proposition is, and this is both researching with customers, but also looking at competitors. So if your competitors are doing certain things, you might find a gap and say, this is our sweet spot. This is really where we want to be operating. And then the last one is short versus long term. And this goes back to that return on investment and the KPIs. So if you're setting KPIs, you want to look at both, immediately, what have you got now that you can demonstrate those returns? But then long term, we're working towards those, because you want to be able to justify those, again, back to that board, to say, we set these and we agree that this is the right thing, because, this is about that long-term sustainability. If you think that, you're immediately, at the moment, you're delivering value, but that changes so quickly. And that's the thing that's so critical, is that, it's not long before your amazing offer becomes an everyday, day-to-day expectation. It's mandatory. And then you need something else that makes you great again. And so you have to keep researching and making that great. So those are the sort of 6 elements.
Yeah.
What those link into is there's a key link there. It's all about insights. It's about process and the systems behind it. So actually having those 3 things together almost answers those bigger 6 needs, because if you've got the insights to do something, you've got the processes and systems set up to do that. That means that you can then get all of those things operating again, and the alignment. So those things will get you moving. And it's actually, when you look at it, a lot of people go, well, that's not really groundbreaking, but it's the way in which you would approach it that actually would really create value for customers, and then also the revenue.
Yeah, brilliant. I really found that fascinating, and I think it in a way it reminds me of what I'm sure you've heard of Michael Gerber and his book In the E-Myth. Where he talks about business expertise, and he says that one of the reasons why so many businesses don't succeed at the level they could, and in fact why I think it's something like 80% of startup businesses fail within 5 years, is due to what he calls operational expertise. People who run the business tend to go into business doing what they have done for many years. So, a lawyer opens their own legal practice, an accountant their own accountancy, a garage mechanic opens his own garage, a hairdresser, a beauty salon, and so on. Believing because they're good at doing the operational work that they can run a business that does that work. And Gerber says that the 2 areas that they fall in is the finance. They're not good at managing the money. They don't understand how to read a set of accounts and so on, or certainly not to the level that they should. And then the marketing, being able to sell the stuff. And as you and I know, one of the biggest problems is what you said about the KPIs and the understanding the numbers, and really being able to feel confident in investing in something. I often talk to people about getting what I call proof of concept. And that's around, if I know I'm going to invest in Google advertising, for example, I have to first get proof of concept before I start making significant investment in that. If I know that for every pound I invest, I'm getting £10 back, it's like, how often do I want to do that? Well, all day, every day, as much as possible. I put £1 million a day into it because I know I'm going to get £10 million back, and also quickly as well. That was an important point. It's not just about investing in, let's improve our brand, although that is important. It's about investing and getting a return on investment, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually funny you say that. I was just thinking of a customer I'd spoken to a while ago, and his first words to me was, what I want to do is I'd like to spend money on marketing, but I just want the tap to switch on the tap to marketing. And I had to explain to him how that works. And this is, again, what we're talking about, the short and long-term pieces, that actually marketing is not a tap. It's more like an old-fashioned pump, because you're pumping, aren't you? And as you're pumping, those leads are slowly pumping up that pipeline, and then they come out. But if you switch the tap on and off, it doesn't work that way. The pressure doesn't maintain. If if you're pumping and you leave it, they drop all the way down. So you've got to keep it going. And it's a constant on. And it might be that you don't do masses, but you've got to do enough to keep it flowing. Otherwise, it'll just drop right off. You can't do it, stop start all the time.
I don't know about you, Lauren, but in my business, I come across people and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do any marketing right now. I'm really, really busy. And so they're going along at a level, and then all of a sudden this busyness starts to drop off. And then they come back and go, oh, Steve, I need some help with my marketing. And then they start to go up again, and they go, oh, I'm too busy. I can't do marketing anymore. And it's just it's just that up and down and up again and down type situation, which it must be A, quite frightening, and B, they're never really going to get anywhere. There's like a ceiling and a floor, and they just hover between those two things for years and years and years.
But it's almost like what you're saying about that that you can see behind that is goes back to that process piece again, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
and the skills and capacity, because they've obviously got a process that can't cope with it once it gets to a certain point. And this is where that scaling up piece comes in, because you're going, okay, we're going to go up. Now we need these things in place to be able to do that. And then we can keep it going, rather than just going, peaks and troughs. You want to be able to smooth those out and have that continual flow. So you're not panicking that you suddenly have to go, we need leads. And actually you creating that, because actually to win those customers, depending on the industry, sometimes that takes some time, and you can't just, create leads and magic sales overnight. It doesn't work that way.
No. I always remember Sir John Harvey Jones. Some of you older listeners might remember Sir John. He ran a program on TV called Troubleshooters, where he went into a business and advised them and helped them and turned them around, much like the modern programs like the Hotel Inspector and the restaurant with Gordon Ramsay, where he goes in. It was sort of the first one of those. But Sir John was the former chairman of ICI. He was responsible for turning the company around when it was losing millions. And he once famously said that, I know for a fact that 50% of my marketing budget is wasted. He said, the trouble is I don't know which 50%. And that is so true today as it was probably 50 years ago when he took over at ICI. Most of the businesses that I see don't know. They don't know their marketing numbers, and that's absolutely paramount, isn't it?
Yeah, and knowing, as you say, the target is so critical, and how you might engage them is really important as well. That you might go, as you start to get to bigger organizations, you really need to know the persona, what type of person is, what are their interests, what kind of format of communication they like, what type of content, what kind of activities. And you can happily invest in those, knowing that that's what they're interested in. and that then creates your efficiency and effectiveness, because
Yeah.
you're not wasting time creating things that are, irrelevant.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things you said, you were talking about skills, particularly in terms of marketing. Can you just expand on that? And I think it's something we both agree on, that there is a massive skills gap. I spoke at an event a little while ago that was full of marketing managers and marketing directors, people like that. And I got talking about Google remarketing and geofencing. I said, hands up, who knows what I'm talking about? And in this room of about 100 people, there's about 6 hands. And these are full-time marketing people who clearly weren't aware of the latest technology that's around. And that's a major problem, I think.
I think what I find interesting with that, because it's interesting enough, my partner is he's an operations director, and he's in charge of it's a very technical company that he works in, and these guys are like literally to the level of sort of rocket scientist. But
Right.
he has no understanding of the rocket scientists, but yeah, he manages them, because what he's doing is creating the operations and effectiveness.
Yeah.
But it's about having the team, the right team, or the, maybe the external support that sort of almost plugs that gap, that skill gap. Because as a manager, you're probably managing, profit and loss, and you understand the objectives, you're managing talent and all of those things, and that's completely fine. But how you would plug that gap is like, for somebody like you, somebody had to do geofencing, because I'll put my hand up and say, there's things I don't know about that.
Well,
And I'm in no way.
There are things I don't know about marketing.
Yeah.
Probably lots
That's
of
why
them.
you would use somebody like you, because you go, okay, look, I need to run a tactical campaign. I know what my, what that target audience is interested in. How I run the tactical piece is then I get a tactical expert to bring to that. And quite often I've run some projects where I actually use external freelancers, because they are expert in that specific thing. So I did something recently with mass amount of data, and I really needed somebody who was, somebody who could handle big data. So I can do analysis, I know the story, but I don't know how to crunch it. And that's the thing where you bring in those things, and like marketing directors, marketing managers would help with some tactical stuff. You could help them, and vice versa with this. Maybe there's some strategy pieces that they just need that external insight. And the other thing I'll probably just add to that, one thing that I noticed in a lot of these interviews, and this is across all the different teams, is they all went on about bias and having an external independent voice. Because those silos form, people start to have their own almost political agenda in a bigger organization. And actually, if you've got an external person, they are unbiased, and all they're doing is saying, look, I'm looking at the data and this is what you need to do. I've got no agenda in this. It's about, this is the best thing for the organization and your customer.
No, I'm sure you're absolutely right. And just to reiterate, really, my thoughts around marketing and training and the skills gap that we're talking about there. It is, I think, almost impossible to be up to date in terms of marketing. Because you take anything, take something like LinkedIn, and people say, well, I'm on LinkedIn. And often they say I don't really do very much, but even if they do, and I do a lot of training on LinkedIn, as you know, but I'm often coming across things where people will say to me, oh, what do you think to this? And I go, well, what is it? I don't know. And it's very difficult in this changing digital modern marketing world for anybody to be up to date, and particularly if you're not a full-time marketing person. So but it's there again, it's really important, I believe, to take that training, to get trained, to make sure people are as up to date as possible. And not just rely on the knowledge that you and I picked up 20 years ago is not quite irrelevant, but it's not a million miles away from that. It's
but I think I think the job for people who are independent like you and I is that we're going to so many conferences, we go to seminars, we go to workshops, we're keeping up to date all the time.
Absolutely.
So that we can bring that value to an organization to explain to them how to do that. And you definitely with all of the different mastery results mastery classes that you're doing, you're able to provide that online. There's something I did recently is, I mentioned that account-based marketing, because it's still fairly new. A lot of marketers don't really know how to do it. And so I've run masterclasses for people just to say, look, this is the principles behind it, because you just need to understand why you're doing it, and what's the outcome.
Yeah. So I think often, my belief, I don't know whether you share it, but I'll just tell you what I think. I think often the difference between success in marketing and mediocrity and even failure, and I'm talking about like a particular campaign or maybe the marketing of the business as a whole, is often not great. It's only a little tweak here, a little change there, that can make a massive difference. And yet so many people I see will try something for a small amount of time. I've tried Facebook advertising, but that doesn't work. Oh, really? What did you do? Well, I went on there for about 3 weeks and put a campaign out. I spent a few £100, and now the whole of Facebook advertising, in my opinion, does not work based on 3 weeks and a couple of £100. Now, that's one of the things I think that where you said that how people like want to just turn the tap on, and it instantly work. It doesn't. You turn the tap on and marketing starts to flow, but leads don't always flow straight back to you, do they?
No.
Sometimes you have to change things, have to change headlines and words and pictures and pages and so on to find that secret recipe. And sometimes it's a little bit like a needle in a haystack, to be honest.
And it's all test and learn, isn't it? You're just tweaking as you're going along, and how can you improve it? And that's like a mixture of things of, setting KPIs that you think, are these relevant and appropriate? Because if you set something really ridiculous, there's no way you're going to hit that goal. But you say, well, let's test this and let's look at what happens short term and long term. And one of the ladies I follow is Dory Clark, and she's a strategic thinker, and she talks about short and long term vision. And one of the things she said, just because you have a short term activity, you have an activity that's working, it doesn't mean that it's not working. It's just not working yet.
Yes.
And I really like that, because you're just saying, okay, what we need to do is tweak it, keep moving, and all of a sudden it'll gain momentum. But it's not to say,
I agree totally. No,
it's not ever going to work.
Say all marketing works. Everything that you could possibly do works, but it doesn't work all the time. Facebook works, LinkedIn advertising, Google, exhibiting, and so on and so forth. All these things work, but I often use an analogy of sport, because I'm from a sporting background, and it's a bit like me going, I'm going to be a professional footballer, so I'll try that for a couple of months, and then after 2 months I'm actually not much better, so I'm going to play professional tennis now and go down and practice tennis for a few months, and I'm still not a professional yet, so I'll go on and play cricket or something, and you have to grind out the time on your craft, don't you? And eventually you'll get there. So I think it's around determination, really, to succeed marketing
and tweaking. Actually, I watched a documentary which I think was on Netflix, and I think it was Michael Jordan, which I never realized he took a career break from basketball and wanted to play professional golf.
Did he really? Okay.
Yeah. And it was really interesting. He said how it was so difficult, because the dynamics of your body and everything else in terms of his muscle setup was completely wrong, and he had to go and train in a different way, and then he decided to do it. It didn't, he did all right with it, and then he decided to go back to basketball, which was even more difficult, because now his body had been set up in a different way, and it shows you when
It's
you
interesting.
switch
I
around.
remember I used to play table tennis. For those of you who don't know, I used to play table tennis at international level. I was a full-time player for years. I remember once going and playing badminton, and the following day, my arm, it was just using muscles I'm not yet used to using. And then my technique at table tennis, it had gone. It just playing a different sport had totally mucked it up. I just wasn't seeing the ball right, and the timing and everything had gone for a couple of days. So I can fully understand that. And
it shows you how how everything's different in different formats. And like you were saying about email, Facebook, LinkedIn, and how everything's relevant to a specific industry and a type of product or service in one channel might be completely different for something else. So it's knowing what kind of content or formats and things they're looking for in that specific industry and that type of target audience.
And even that, like the way you talk, I talk different on LinkedIn to the way I might do on Facebook, because they're different platforms. Even though I'm basically targeting the same people, I talk in a different way and use different pictures and different videos even. So I totally get that. So we're coming towards the end of our time together. Now I wanted to ask you if you could think, and I don't think I've warned you about this one, but I'm sure you'll get by. What were the top 3 tips based on your research and based on your experience in marketing? What were the top 3 tips you could leave people with today, please?
Definitely insights. If anything you're going to do, try and do some research. And it might be that perhaps you don't have the finances that you could get an external person in, maybe not, but at least perform market research, that either you look at your competitors, what's going on outside, because you'd be surprised how quickly that changes. So don't do it just once. You need to do it over and get that up to date and adjust your positioning accordingly. So you need to still be strong and competitive. I would definitely say, depending on the size of your company, because obviously bigger companies have struggled with this, is about the alignment and, align your activities. And even you might even be, only 10 people organization, but you want to make sure that you are doing the same things and you have the same information systems, because the information system. So if you think like a CRM, you need to be able to record all of that information that everybody's experiencing. So maybe the service person's spoken to their customer about a particular issue, and then the sales guy phones them up and starts talking to them about trying to sell something when actually they've got a problem with their product and they don't know about that. So that system and process is
That's a really good example.
And the alignment. So that I would say insights, process and system, and alignment. Those 3, if you can get those together, that really will, means you work together more effectively, and there's less chance of embarrassing conversations as well.
Thank you. So if people want to work with you, to get in touch with you, what's the best way of them doing that, Lauren?
Where you can find me on LinkedIn. If you looked under Lauren Cooper Marketeer, you'll find me. And otherwise online, you find my website is Adapt with Lauren. And you can read more blogs about all of the other research as well if you wanted to have a look at that. Or you could drop me an email, which is clients@adaptwithlauren.com.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much. It's interesting on LinkedIn, isn't it? There are so many, I don't know, Lauren Coopers. I know there seem to be millions of Steve Millses.
Yes.
So adding that word marketing on the end always gets you found, so I find. So thank you ever so much. I really appreciate your time. Your expertise has been invaluable to people, and I really do appreciate you being here. So thank you ever so much. For everybody listening today, the same thing applies really. I really thank you for listening, taking the time to watch the video, to listen to the audio. And if I can help you, then obviously get in touch with me. Best place would be my website, which is steve-mills.com. On Thursday at 11 o'clock, I run a free online web meeting if you'd like to attend that. And then again, you can connect to me on wherever you want, really. I'm pretty much everywhere on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for listening, and look forward to speaking to you again on my next podcast and on my next video. Thank you.